And the bad news is James English, Darren Gee, the beef has been reignited. Well, it never really stopped, but they had stopped talking about each other so much. James English hadn't mentioned Darren Gee for a very long time. And Darren every now and then will talk on the situation or his views on the situation, but it had been a long while since it was sparked, so to speak. And today, James English has just dropped a podcast with Amie Gee, Amy Palin, who is Darren's brother, Billy, who's very sadly took his own life, suffered from epilepsy and some mental health issues, drug-induced, if from all the stories that have been told. She had 3 children with him. I think they were together on and off for quite a while, but the podcast is painting Darren in a very, very bad light. Darren has hit back straight away. And the question is, who do you believe in this situation? Who do you think is being disingenuous? Who do you think is trying to garner views, sling mud on the other person's name, potentially trying to deflect something that they've got going on in their own life? And I would say, really and truly, in this situation right now, I think that James English has put her up. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Boys, remember that. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And Amie Palin seems to me like a woman scorned. Now, I'm not going to go through everything in the podcast. It's very, very long. I watched the majority of it, but she's saying some very, very heavy shit and making some deep accusations about Darren in this podcast with very little to no evidence. So when you've got someone that's making these outrageous claims, you can't just say stuff like this. There needs to be some evidence. And the only evidence that ever gets produced on screen is when you've got like James English going, yeah, just because I don't shut my mouth off, I'd batter Darren. And then a video of James boxing. And then a video of Darren boxing. And yeah, if they were to have a straightener, judging by the footage, James probably would beat Darren, but that doesn't mean he's any of the things that are being said about him in this. Now, do I think Darren Gee is whiter than white? Absolutely not. Do I think that this podcast is very, very disingenuous? A few reasons why. To chuck mud on Darren Gee's name, to deflect from a situation that James English has got going on in courts at the minute, which don't paint him in a very good light whatsoever, and to maybe restoke the flames on a channel that has gone from getting millions of views to 10,000 views. It's a big fucking jump. On with that, he's having people on like Bonnie Blue and the real dregs of fucking society, and he's now got this Amie Palin on who, by all accounts, sounds like just a bit of a raggy sniffhead, who probably you can't really trust very much of what she's saying. Now, I don't know her personally. I'm not saying that it's 100% lies, but I'm just saying there's no evidence, no basis, no backing to what she's saying. Some of the stuff she's saying, Darren was showing illicit images to his 12-year-old niece. Saying that he had letters and pictures of indecent pictures that women had sent him whilst he was in jail, and he was showing her all these pictures and saying stuff to her, you know, have you ever been with a boy? Have you ever been touched in that way by a boy? And all this, that and the other. And it's just like, you can't fucking say that about a man. It's absolutely disgusting, because Darren's come back straight away and just gone, how do you respond to this? Does she think that happened? No. Is she making that up herself? Or has James English pushed her to say that, to spread the narrative about Darren Gee? That's for you to decide, but I would say I'm very highly likely that is not true. They also question Darren has spoke about some sexual abuse that he suffered when he was a young lad. And they question that, which I find very, very strange. That James English was very quick to pounce on it, you know. So what about this? Like prompting her to say it. She said, well, I know that he was beaten and physically abused, but I haven't really heard anything happen. So is he lying? So is he like pushing straight away to go, yeah, he chats a load of shit. It's just like, so you've basically just boxed the woman into a corner into saying this, and then just basically made her, but like manipulated her, or I wouldn't say manipulated her, but you know what I mean, like skated around and sort of pushed her to say that it wasn't true when she didn't actually say that in the first place. She said, well, Billy never mentioned that to me. You know, there's 5 brothers, I believe. What's to say that Billy wasn't involved in it? And I know the way Darren spoke about it, it's like it came out over years. It was blocked from his mind. You know, they could have been drunk, whatever else. Listen, I'm not saying that it's 100% true or false. I'm saying you've got to have some stonewall evidence that is not true if you are going to question someone's recount of that. That's a fucking heavy accusation to make, on top of the fact that she's basically saying he's a PDF, and then questioning his own essay that he said that he was involved in. It's just fucking disgraceful. And the fact that James English is even going to platform someone and almost push them into saying these things is just like, mate, wow. So the back and forth has been going on for quite a well. It happened years ago between these two, and it was basically James English and Darren Gee were sort of buddy, and they were doing podcasts together. Obviously, James English already had a pretty much well-established podcast before Darren Gee on there, but nowhere near the numbers that he was getting at the point. Darren's come on, numbers are flying. You know, if you look back at I think he said he deleted them, but there is still ones on there, and they've got well over 1 million views. Which are some of his highest viewed pods he's ever done. Then there was some sort of fallout over, I can't really work out exactly what it was, but Darren Gee was saying, basically, Darren's got a lot of criminal friends, a lot of criminal enemies, sorry. James English was friends with Darren Gee's criminal enemies. And Darren thinks that James was trying to set him up, basically trying to maybe help these criminal entities get hold of him. If you listen to Darren's version of events, he was doing a podcast with someone who was an enemy who had real bad intentions against Darren. James was doing a podcast with him, and James was trying to get them there on the same day. James denies any of this, denies any of it's true, says he has no connections to this criminal entity, but then he says that he has no connection to him, but then when he's putting up his clips of him the video clips of him boxing, what is the gym that he's boxing at? Why does he have connections to this gym? If you know, you know. I'm not a sweetgrass. I'm not going to say any names, but it's pretty much there to see. So I can sort of understand why Darren has got these very powerful, very strong enemies who have caused him to have Osman warnings against his name and this, that and the other. I can understand why he wouldn't want to be entwined with someone who was entwined in bed with these gangs. Boom, boom, boom. It doesn't mesh together well. And Marvin Herbert was the other name that was getting bounced about. He was involved in them all. So it was all sort of like, listen, I'm not saying that there was this big mad conspiracy with James English at the centre and they were trying to assassinate Darren Gee. But I can very much understand with Darren Gee's lifestyle that he's lived, with the threats that he's had, the threats against his life and the situations that he's been in, why he would think that someone was mutual friends with them, was trying to encourage them all to meet. It was with bad intentions against him. Probably part of being involved in a gun-toting lunatic from Liverpool. The paranoia probably all comes with it, you know. These people were very, very real, and they very, very much were after Darren at points, and he has continually outed other crime figures from Liverpool throughout his YouTube and internet career, while spreading his message for kids to leave these criminal gangs and not get involved and all this, that, the other. It's all just got very, very messy. And I feel like this Amie Palin, who was never actually married, on there as Amie Gee, never married to his brother, coming on trying to say that some heroin and crack user attacked her, and Darren Gee paid him to do so with no evidence, no substantial evidence at all, none, zero. There's just story after story after story after story after story, and I just find it very, very hard to believe any of it. She's clearly a coke user. She's clearly involved with the criminal entities who actually are against Darren, and James English seems to be just leveraging this to kick off another storm, have Darren attack back at them, or to throw mud at Darren's name. Darren has now just had a TikTok profile that had 40-odd thousand subscribers, stripped, more or less, taken away, blocked, banned, whatever, as soon as this podcast has come out. And the more all this sort of stuff happens, it's sort of like almost, is it true what he's saying? I feel like he's a little bit too paranoid, but at the same time, it's like, why is it as soon as this has come out, he's got no platform now to reply back? Obviously, he's got a YouTube channel, but it's got nowhere near the following. So I just hope that his actual response gets shared about a bit, so you can see the comeback. She said a few things like, sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. I really haven't got an outline for how I'm doing this. I'm just speaking about it as I remember. She's saying stuff like really, really horrible things, like when Darren's brother took his own life, that Darren made Darren's wife go through the man's pockets, a dead man's pockets, go on the man's phone, delete messages and this and that. It's just like, but Darren was in prison when this happened and he didn't get out till years after. She seems to be very, very vindictive and very, very angry the whole time, saying, Billy never liked you, Billy didn't speak to you, you was no brother to him, this, that and the other. Really horrible things to say. And it seems to be that she has a real bee in her bonnet about the fact that I'm not going to say any names because it is a young girl. When this young girl was, 12 or 13, she was taking drugs in a park, brought back to Darren by one of his neighbours, and the mum had left, basically, gone off with a fella who she was apparently having an affair with when Darren's brother was alive. It's messy family situations, and the little girl, 12, 13 years old, was brought to Darren, broke down, told her about these bad things that she had been doing, sleeping with older boys who were involved in these criminal fraternities. And Darren has said this to everyone online, said this on his Twitter, said this on podcast, and she now has a real being up on it about it all. You know, I could be wrong, and if evidence comes out, obviously I'll be the first one to hold my hands up and apologise. But at the minute, it's a lot of fucking... It looks really, really bad on her and James English, and it looks like Darren is a real victim in this situation. And I don't like how vindictive and horrible it all is against him. But I could be wrong. Let me know what you think, boys. If you got this far, hit the sub. Adios, le bosh.